And I think we are live. As always, guys, please let me know. Let me know if you can see me and hear me on Facebook as well as YouTube. Please give me the first under 2 minutes just to get my graphics set up with all the round 16 scores, get my video in from Tristan from Top Sport to find out how the bookies did, and get all the comments fired up. Guys, please share your moment of round 16. A few fizzes in there. Not the best round of my tips either, but some talking points for sure. We'll get through it. Let me also just share it into the Tripod Facebook group. I can't see any comments yet. Hopefully it's all working all right. I'm just going to carry on sharing it. Thanks, Jeff. Okay, I think that's shared into the group. You reckon there's only 2 premiership contenders member berries? Don't know, a couple other teams going all right. We'll have to discuss the mixed matchups, Dane. Welcome to the Tripod, where we break down the NRL every game, every week from a punting perspective. I'm Jacob Wynn. This is the live round 16 recap. Not the best week for me. 5 best bets I gave out, and we only went 2 and 3. We lost today, so a losing record on the best bets. And simply, if I'm sharing out, as I've kind of said throughout the year, if I'm sharing out 5 best bets, you might think, well, surely he's going to win at least 3 out of 5. And while we have this year and we're still 66% against the spread, it's just not going to be the case every week. So that's just how it goes, unfortunately. And all 5 best bets were clearly one side was better than the other. So no excuses there. But I'll talk about game by game and where I went wrong. There was some positives, though. Double trouble with the mixed matchup. So my mixed matchup saluted again, not as easily as it probably could have. I had the Sharks to outscore the Raiders, but luckily we didn't have to worry, even though the Sharkies were upset in a game, again, that was quite interesting that I'll talk about later in this video. Sharkies put up 18 points, but we only needed them to outscore the Raiders, who scored 6 at home last night. They've got serious issues, so that was an easy win. But what about, if you're going to talk about easy wins, at $2.50, I came up with the idea to throw it over to you guys for a bonus pick. Get Top Sport to frame a market, nominated and voted for by the Tripod group. There were lots of great suggestions. I was reading the comments. I think quite a few would have got up. But the market that the group chose, nominated by Rod, was the Titans to score more points than the Cowboys. And as we know, that won 44-0, paying $2.50. You could have had $200 on each of those two. So that somewhat salvages the week. Full disclosure, of course, I had a couple of multis. Well, we had 2 multis and they both fell short. When you lose a few legs, that's the way it goes as well. So as I say, mixed bag, but overall, at least hopefully people who are jumping on these mixed matchups are finding the value there and are happy with that. And just on the note of shouting out the group as well, we hit 25,000 members this weekend, which is pretty special as well. We work really hard to try and make it a good group that's positive, that's enjoyable to be around and to talk and share thoughts with like-minded people who love their footy or just love the punt. And we also want to try and keep it as sharp as possible. And I'm not the only person, as I spoke about on Wednesday, that's sharing winning tips by any stretch. But I'm certainly giving it my best every single week. And the people that we go up against are the bookies, and in particular, our show sponsor, Top Sport, who are pretty good sports. You've got to give them a lot of credit for running this market for us, for giving us one every single week. We're now into round 16. And when I asked Tristan, can I get a bonus market frame this weekend, thinking maybe that would be pushing the envelope, he obliged. And as you guys know, the results. So let's actually hear now from Tristan to find out how the bookies did this weekend.
Hello, Tripod family. It's Tristan Merlahan here from Top Sport. It's been a very ordinary week in the Top Sport office on the NRL products. Saturday in particular was a very, very tough weekend. There was some blowout scores where the favourites and then the Titans just absolutely dominated, and the market moved from 6.5 into 4.5 for the Titans. The favourites on Saturday night, the Manly Sea Eagles, and also the Knights were very, very well supported. So after the mixed matchup got up, both the Jacobs bet and also the public bet also drove me to the drink. So we're here on a Sunday night out, watching another blowout where the Bunnies are currently up 20-0. I've got some blokes here that are trying to wire me up. So you guys are too good this weekend. Top Sport's going to try to bounce back next week, but unfortunately the NRL results haven't been to the bookies' liking. So we'll see how we travel next week. But good luck to everyone that backed the winner. Next week's a new week, and gamble responsibly.
So don't feel too bad for Tristan. He's got a wry smile there. And you know what? I think, as he said, the score was Bunnies 20-0. And that line, that game that just ended now, the line was, I think, 20.5. Bunnies favoured over the Tigers. And so Tristan thought he was in for another hiding because, as we know, the public and the typical weight of money is coming for these massive favourites. And in the end, a little bit of a resurgence by the Tigers in the second half. The Bunnies did not cover that line. So I think that helped Tristan out a little bit more. There was a little bit of discussion in the group about like these mixed matchups too good to be true, and when everyone's saying Top Sport's going to run out of money or cut us off. But the fact is, like, it's like any bookie. It's obviously, let's be realistic. It's a form of marketing in that every bookie is going to spend money, whether it's bookies that spend millions on TV ads, whether it's Sportsbet donating $5,000 for every try celebration, and good on them. But it's about being in the discussion. If Top Sport is framing this market for us, it's getting more interest, and we're talking about them every week, and we're talking about them on this pod that I'm really fortunate that thousands of people watch or listen. So, if it's not really too good to be true, we've certainly, I think, had a few go our way in terms of winning 7 in a row. You can't expect that. And if you choose to sign up to Top Sport because you want to start jumping on these mixed matchups, I'm certainly not going to promise you that it's just a money train and it's guaranteed. I can only say, look at the results, judge for yourself. If you think that there's a value bet to be jumped on each weekend and you want access to that, then go for it. But it's gone our way for sure. There's no guarantees how it's going to go in the future, but I say enjoy it while it lasts. I hate to say this, but there's going to be a time in the future, whether it's in a few months, whether it's in a year or two, where we all say, remember the mixed matchup. How good was that? How good were those days? So I don't think it's going to last forever, but we've got a commitment for the rest of the season. And you guys know I do my very best to find us a good value for our money. Don't know how many more cracks Tristan will give the people at it as well, but we'll see what we can do, guys. Let's talk about the footy action, because it was not all grins for me. Started off pretty bleak. In fact, Thursday night, we had, the two best teams of the last decade and a good rivalry set up for a game that I thought could be good, but in fact, it was the Storm 46 obliterating the Roosters to 0. And I had a best bet, which was Roosters plus 6.5 in the first half. And this was after talking about how great we were going with these first half bets and taking underdogs, double-digit underdogs in the first half, because even if a score blows out, we might still hang in there. And to be fair, 15 minutes in, I thought we were going to get a good footy game to open up round 16. I thought the Roosters were in the arm wrestle. I also thought the Roosters had their chances and dropped a lot of balls. And the opening try is a kick from Sam Walker that's just a little bit too heavy. Storm tapped the ball on their 20 for a 7-tackle set. Kick it, second tackle, 80-metre length of the field, try for Addo-Carr that gathers the kick with no fullback. And that was just a bit of a warning of what was to come. Nicho Hynes scored a kick return try from a ball that bounced up and could have nearly been regathered by the kicking team. Instead, it was Nicho Hynes taking it 60 the other way. Even on the stroke of half-time, the Roosters dropped the ball on halfway. Addo-Carr picked it up, returned it in. It was 30-0 to the Storm at half-time. Now, that's not excuses. Obviously, I backed against the Storm in this one, and I paid the price. And I don't like backing against the Storm. And certainly, if I'm going to learn from this, it's don't just think twice about betting against the Storm. think 3 times. I'm not going to say I'll never do it because I never say never betting against anyone or on anyone. But they're absolutely ruthless. And just on the Storm's note, so who wasn't playing? Harry Grant will still come back into this team. Pappenhausen will still come back, and Nelson Solomona. So clearly the Storm now are the favourites to do what the Roosters just did and repeat as champions. Certainly they're the strongest team in the land right now. But I will say this about the Roosters. I mean, Sam Walker was under immense pressure all night, got absolutely hammered multiple times. You do worry because the kid has got to be just about the lightest frame of any player playing in the NRL, and he got bashed. You do worry about him, but that just gave the Roosters no chance. But I do wonder maybe if they should move Manu to 6, add a bit more strike to their spine because they seem to be lacking. And let's also remember that Victor Radley will be back from his 5-game suspension next week for the Roosters. Not only will that solidify the middle in defense, but that adds more to their attack and ball playing as well. So my takeaway, and you can tell me if you disagree, 46-0 losers. I didn't take a lot away from the Roosters. I think the Roosters will still probably finish 6th, to be honest, this season. So they're not a team that I would give up on, even though they got flogged. And boy, everyone let me know about it. Now, crazy Friday couple of games. So it began with the earlier kickoff with Dragons 19 beating the Warriors 18 in Golden Point. Where to begin? Maybe just within the last 10 minutes. I wanted to bet on the Dragons plus 3.5. It was on Wednesday as a best bet. I just stayed off the game for the fact that the Dragons had 3 Origin players backing up and the Warriors didn't. In the end, of course, the 3 Dragons all did back up, so I probably should have been on them. But with 10 to go, the Warriors are winning 18-6, and I'm more than happy that I stayed away from that one. Looks like the Warriors are going to get a well-deserved win. Looks like the Dragons are going to slip up, which is great for our season-long 15-1. You just felt like they had not quite been put away. You can't turn any game off that's within 2 scores late, obviously, but it just felt like the Warriors probably had them by the scruff of the neck. There's even a moment where the Warriors could have probably kicked a field goal when they were winning by 12. They don't. The Dragons get a try. You're thinking now the Dragons have got a sniff. But the part of the story of the night was Corey Norman could not nail a kick. So then the Dragons were down 8. You're thinking Warriors probably will hang on to an 8-point lead. Warriors get all the way down to the Dragons try line, and Chad Townsend goes for a field goal, which obviously was mind-blowing at the time, even though some people are trying to argue it was smart because the game ended 18-18. You cannot be kicking a field goal attempt when you're up 8 with 6 minutes to go because you think the other team will score exactly 2 unconverted tries. It turned out he thought that the previous conversion by Dragons was successful, so he thought they were only up 6. That's still a big mistake to make because he misses that field goal attempt, and that's the roll of the dice you take with field goal shots now. 7 tackles set. What happens? The Dragons score on the 7th tackle of the set that they get, which then gets them within 2 points. It gets them within 4 because, again, Corey Norman misses the conversion. The Warriors still looking like they're hanging on for dear life, but, there's not much time left. And another huge moment is when the Warriors are taking the ball up off their own try line with 90 seconds left. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck gets pushed back into his in goal, forces a dropout, 40 seconds to go. The Dragons score on the final play of the game with the Warriors wingers jamming in and Ramsey scores in the corner. Corey Norman, it's all set up for him to redeem himself and nail the winning conversion. He hits the post, and then more chaos ensued in extra time. Both teams missed field goal opportunities. Both teams spilled balls. In the end, it is Corey Norman who has the last laugh, kicks the winning field goal. Massive for the Dragons, gut-wrenching for the Warriors. Let us know what else you guys took away from that game. The next one was just as close. The Panthers won 13-12. We had a best bet on this one. We took the Eels plus 7.5, and they lost by 1 point. So this was an absolute arm wrestle, and in fact, the Eels were in front 1-0 and then 2-1 at different stages in this match. So we were always pretty comfortable with our bet, especially grabbing over a converted try. I watched the Panthers, and it's very clear that they missed Nathan Cleary a lot, and that's not saying much, but they also really miss Dylan Edwards. You swap Charlie Staines back to fullback. He's a really talented player. We know him as the Forbes Ferrari. He's a great ball runner, but he's not that same ball player and link man. And of course, it takes an explosive player off the wing as well. So I think the combination of missing Cleary and Edwards was part of the reason to give Para a red-hot chance in this one. And they ripped in, to be fair. I thought a guy who I don't think I've shouted out this season, but is just been phenomenal, is Isaiah Papali'i. He is one of the Eels' best every week. He is incredibly powerful, mobile. I want to ask you a question of Warriors fans. How did you let a guy like him go? He's the signing of the season for me. And as you guys probably know, because this is a game most people probably watched, Matty Burton nails a field goal on the second attempt after it was 12-all. So gets the Panthers' noses in front with like a minute to go, maybe less. Eels go for the short kickoff, obviously, and get, I think, a very soft penalty. And I don't think it was really a genuine penalty, but, they're trying to contest the ball and they sold being shepherded out of the way. And Mitchell Moses gets that chance to kick the winning penalty goal. It's not an easy one. It's probably 40 meters out, 35 out and wide. And I'm sure you know how it went. He missed that one. Does it cost him a Blues jersey? I don't know. They're probably naming the team tonight. For me, I think I said on Wednesday, I'd still pick Mitchell Moses. And I think he had a pretty controlled game and did well in this one. It's a tough loss for Para. But if anything, they showed that they can compete with Panthers. I've just mentioned Penrith were missing a couple of very key players. But hey, Parramatta was also missing Reid Marnie. And the other reason that the Panthers won this game was Isaiah Yeo. He is a phenomenal player. Now I think he's the best lock forward in the competition by a margin. I think you're definitely picking him for Australia. That's probably pretty obvious. But just what is amazing about Isaiah Yeo when I watch him, he holds the ball in two hands out in front of him, and he can pass at any moment. He can turn somebody back underneath. He can swing it wide, but he kind of shimmies as he runs. But then if you hang off him because you think he's passing, he's breaking a hole through the line with powerful carries. So he really is a revelation. I know that we spoke about him being an underrated player last year as Panthers made a run, but it was worth a shout out again. Other fallout of this game, Luai knee injury as well. And that's interesting too, because the Panthers chose to play Tyrone May in the halves instead of Burton. And I actually think when they were missing Nathan Cleary's kicking game in this, that Burton's kicking game could have replaced that, but Burton playing center probably didn't even have a kick in the game. So I don't know if that was a wrong move by Ivan Cleary, but now he's got both his starting halves out. So now I expect Matty Burton probably will get a go in the halves. And just one other moment, Clint Gutherson's try saver on kick out. I know it doesn't end up affecting the result, although maybe that try saver helps us cover, because you never know if Penrith gets up 6, maybe they get a late try when Parramatta's trying to throw caution to the wind. But that was an unbelievable tackle by Gutho on the line one-on-one against Kickout. Nearly allowed his team to win the game, although they, of course, fell short. Let's move to Saturday, where I have to eat a bit of crow, because the Seagulls beat the Bulldogs 66-0. Now, the best bet, again, am I trying to be too clever? I don't know. I mean, certainly in retrospect, I regret this one. But I took the Bulldogs plus 12.5 in the first half. Now, that's, the Bulldogs were horrible. And I can't make any excuses. Like, why did I pick them when I knew Kotrick was out, Elliott was out, and the 5 players involved in the COVID breach? I still thought, can they gut this out? I had in my mind that first half against Penrith, where I think they were down something like only 10-0 at halftime and only let in the second try in the 39th minute. I had in my mind that first half by the Bulldogs against the Eels, where they led that first half against the Dragons. But the Manly is a different kettle of fish right now. And the only thing I'll say as an excuse is I did say on Wednesday, part of my reasoning for taking the Bulldogs was I thought it would be smart for Manly to rest Trbojevic. Now, clearly they didn't. And he's just out there taking the piss. He had a hat-trick in the first half hour. If I didn't mention, I think the halftime score was 36-0. So as I said in the group, sometimes when it rains, it pours. Even before the game had kicked off, once I knew everyone was backing up for Manly, just watching them like warming up in the locker room, they look like a really confident team. And the Bulldogs look like a team that's just, I don't know, a bit nervous and just hoping that they can hang in there. And clearly they couldn't. I think it's especially disappointing. There's a number of blowouts this weekend. Teams that have all had a week off. I mean, these teams, they can't be that tired. They all got the week off for Origin, and yet multiple teams came out and got flogged this weekend. The only other thing, let's talk about Trbojevic, because there's been a bit of talk about how good he's going. The fact that Nathan Cleary is now out for an extended time, there's a big chance Tom could win the Dally M, even though he didn't play the first month of the season. People have been throwing around best season ever. So I'd like to know what you guys reckon. Obviously, we all talk about the 09 Haynes season, the 2012 Benny Barber season, 2019 Teddy. I think especially if you count rep games, Teddy's 2019 was phenomenal. And I'll throw a couple other guys out there. Maybe not necessarily their whole seasons, but certainly I think back to like prime Greg Inglis when he joined the Bunnies and was playing fullback, and prime Billy Slater. These were players that you would not look away from the TV when they had their hands on the ball, and you felt nervous kicking the ball to them. I mean, I think Billy Slater changed the game, that teams started being happy to kick the ball dead in the in-goal because they didn't want Slater bringing it back, which then eventually led to the rule change to not reward teams for kicking it dead in the in-goal. So those are 5 phenomenal fullbacks, and Turbo is on that level, if not, even scarier what he's doing. Absolutely unbelievable player. And one other thing about Manly, I know it's a little bit hard to judge a team against an awful side like the Dogs who are undermanned. But to be fair, I mean, Manly's beaten a team like Para 2 or 3 weeks ago, dismantled Titans last game. But you still got Schuster and Jake Toroyevich to come back into this side. So I don't think anybody's going to be surprised, or I don't think anybody would say they can't win the comp. That's how good they're going. They're scary. Let's move to a game that's a bit more fun to talk about because it went our way with the best bet, and that was the Titans 44 beating the Raiders 6. And the best bet was just a halftime bet. We took the Titans plus 4.5. They were up 22-0 at halftime. What was great about this bet, and this was probably my most confident game of the 5 this week, and that's why I also had it as my Podfather tip, and that's why I also had it in the mixed matchup. And then the people's pick for the mixed matchup also involved this game. So it was like triple tip on the line for this one, and it worked out perfectly. We needed the Titans to score a lot of points for the people's pick. They scored the most points they've ever scored in club in franchise history. We needed the Raiders to be kept to a modest total. They put on just 6. And as I said, we just needed to cover first half, which we certainly did. Big statement win for the Titans. And you guys, maybe you can understand why I was so befuddled by them losing 48-0 in the second half to Manly. I couldn't explain it because, you saw last night, the Titans are not a terrible footy team, and it was the same players apart from AJ Brimson who returned to the side, and that is probably worth noting because AJ Brimson is an emerging star of the NRL, and it made a difference. And Jaden Campbell has played well in deputising at fullback, but you could see the boost that they gained from Brimson. Of course, Fogarty and Taylor had a great game, but I want to judge the Titans halves on how they go in a close game. I really feel like when you're steamrolling somebody, halves always look good. So Titans, show me something in a game that's in the balance. And if Ash Taylor and Fogarty can steer them into a close win, that could yet salvage their season. The fact that we have Cronulla sitting 8th right now, and they've only won 6 from 15, it keeps everybody alive, apart from probably just Brisbane and Canterbury, right? Who are still, and probably West as well. But although really on number of wins, yeah, there's quite a few teams that are still in the top 8 hunt, whether or not they deserve to be. David Fafita also responded to, obviously getting a lot of criticism from being a bit of a no-show in Origin. He was massive as well, scored the opening try for the Titans. And from the Raiders' point of view, I'm very worried about them now. And I look at a couple of teams, the Raiders being one and West Tigers, who played today, being the other, where, being a good coach, it's not just about your tactics. It's not just about motivating players and command and respect. You can have all that, but I do believe that some coaches do wear their players out. I think if you're an intense type of coach and you're giving the players that message, this is my message, follow my rules, follow me. And a guy like Ricky, the players obviously been buying in. He took them all the way to a grand final where they were tied with 8 minutes to go. But if you keep getting that message and you keep getting kind of that intensity from that coach, but the results aren't coming, I feel like now that message starts to struggle to get through and struggles to resonate. And it's no fault of the coach. It's just a matter that sometimes these things have a shelf life. And if you don't hit enough success with them, then you sometimes need a change. So I wonder if the Raiders do need to change there from a coaching perspective, not criticizing Ricky. I just feel there could be a wear out factor there. What about the next game, which was the late game Saturday night? The Knights won 38-0 over the Cowboys. And to me, the Knights are a little bit like the Titans. They're a team that I picked before the year to make the 8, but they've certainly underperformed. We're now, like 2/3 of the way through the season, and they've underperformed, no question. But it's not too late to make a run, to get key players back. And, of course, Kalen Ponga was back in this one and was a huge difference. And then, Clifford has just been amalgamated into this team. Mitchell Pearce has recently returned. Brayley has been a staple there at 9, but they had all 4 of them available in this game. It made a big difference. Let's not forget, it was only about a month or 6 weeks ago, the Knights played the Cowboys in Townsville, and my best bet was the Knights plus 6.5, and I got hammered for taking this terrible Knights team against the Cowboys. And remember, when I made that best bet, I didn't know Ponga was going to get ruled out either. But as we know, that's what happened. But now, what a kind of change of fortunes now. Since that game where the Cowboys beat the Knights in Townsville, they haven't won a game. They've had a bye week and 3 losses. So now it's gone from the Cowboys looking like they're, doing really well under Toddy Payton and he's working his magic, to an awful performance and no excuses. Well, sorry, I shouldn't say no excuses, because I just referenced Toddy Payton. He had to coach from a hotel suite because he got, connected to a COVID case and had to quarantine from the side. So clearly there was disruption for the Cowboys, but I will still say no excuse for that lackluster performance. They looked so flat. And as I referenced before, none of these teams played. Like, if the Cowboys are going to blame a flat performance on the fact that, who played Origin? Val Holmes and Kyle Felt? I don't buy that, because other teams like Manly certainly didn't look flat. They had a couple of important Origin players come back. So Cowboys were awful. Newcastle back on track. And let's not forget, as I kind of talked about, Manly have still got a couple of good players to come back into their team. Well, Newcastle did this without Tyson Frizzell, without Bradman Best. They're a team that I think definitely can make a surge towards the finals. Let's move to today. We came in sitting at 2-2 on best bets. And with the Sharkies minus 7.5, which seemed a bit light when I tipped it on Wednesday, the line ended up closing 13.5. So I actually came into today with a really good chance to go 66 or 60% on best bets to top off winning those mixed matchups. Now, part of the reason that line moved, I think it was a good tip on Wednesday at that line. But, Matt Lodge got shipped out of town. Flegler didn't play. So the line also expanded because the Broncos were short a couple extra troops in the forwards. But then we also were dealt a bit of a hard luck blow with Matty Moylan, hammy in the warm-up, I believe, scratched in the warm-up. So that wasn't ideal. But look, no excuses. I bet against Brisbane partly because they're super inconsistent. And even in games where they do show up, they often have lapses and let themselves down in periods. And you've got to say this was one of Brisbane's more consistent and more focused efforts of the season. And certainly since they beat the Roosters 6 weeks ago, this was their best performance since then. And they've had a bit of turmoil in the last few weeks, as we all know. So there was no guarantee Brisbane were going to bring this performance. Now, if you didn't agree with my tip, or if, you said that Brisbane would be a different side with Katoni Staggs, you're absolutely right. And I knew Staggs would be back. I just didn't know if he'd be absolutely firing first game, but he did have a huge impact. Payne Haas is always Brisbane's best. Again, he was fantastic. There were a couple of massive moments in this game too. I think when it was 12-all, Izako ripped the ball out of Mulatalo's hands when he was certain to score. Also, when it was 18-all, the Sharkies made a line break 50 metres downfield. If they're not going to score that play, they're probably going to score next play. Ramian spills it. And then the very next play, Tessie New breaks a tackle and goes 90 metres and scores for Brisbane. So that pretty much swung the game right there. At that point, with Brisbane finding the lead with 15 to go, you kind of knew Cronulla could win, but probably not going to be able to cover. And in the end, well done to Brisbane. They deserved it. How about the Sharkies? They're sitting 8th right now, and they've lost twice this year to the 16th place team. So that's wasteful, I think. Not taking care of business against teams that you definitely should be beating because you're just not up to it. And I talked about how Brisbane overperformed on recent form, and the Sharkies that have been actually gone really well let us down today. They were flat. Maybe they underestimated their opponent. Now, obviously, on the fact that my best bet lost there, I actually wanted to make a point as well because a couple of my best bets got flogged this weekend. So, for example, that Bulldogs best bet of plus 12.5 in the first half. Now, when I tipped that on Wednesday, you could get plus 12.5 in a couple of bookies. By Thursday, that line had dropped. So that every bookie had gone down to Seagulls minus 11.5 first half. Now, this is the beauty of watching the pod or listening to the pod every week, even if you don't follow my tips or agree with my tips. Because if there is an influence on the market, and there often is, and you disagree with my reasoning, like a couple of people said, oh, well, I disagree. I don't think Turbo's going to get rested, or I disagree. The Dogs are absolutely trash. You now have an awesome opportunity. You don't have to wait till game day and see if I lose and then let me know about it. You've got a huge opportunity to just bet big against the best bets. So you would have got minus 11.5 on the Seagulls, and it would have been a nice, easy win. So I don't mind that at all. I don't mind at all who jumps on the bets, who goes against them. That's what it's all about. If we all had the same opinion, there would really be no betting market. So people don't agree, but that's why we're all kind of punters, because we want to back our opinion. So that was probably a good example where if you strongly disagree with something I say, sometimes the pod actually benefits you by pushing the odds further in your favor. It reminds me of a couple of years ago when we used to bet with like Bet Easy, and we'd share a tip, and a bunch of people would smash it on Bet Easy, and they would shift their odds so far that they would make our best bet like $1.65, and they would push the other side of the market to $2.20. And suddenly, if you disagreed with the pod best bet, you could get $2.20 to go against it. So you didn't even need to be right half the time, and you'd still be profitable fading the pod. So that's not something I advise, but I know that, people disagree with me every week. So I'm just saying, you disagree, that's cool. And I always, welcome any contrary opinions or discussion in the comments. And there's opportunities for people who disagree as well. Now, moving to the final game, not a great deal to talk about. I already referenced before. Tigers lost 66-16 to the Storm. They were down 40-0 at halftime. They had 15 days to stew on it. And then they came out at Leichhardt, now albeit no crowd, but they came out today and were down 26-0 at halftime. So I was feeling pretty worried about Madge. To be fair, as I referenced before, they actually fought back and won the second half 22-12. So at least they saved a little bit of face there. That's obviously still, it's never, really a moral victory when you get handily beaten. And to me, the Rabbitohs look like they didn't get out of second gear all day. So if I didn't say the score, the Rabbitohs won 38-22. There was not a lot of intensity in this game, as you can see, with 60 points scored in it. And to sum up or to typify the Bunnies' attitude, Adam Reynolds strolled in for a try and strolled so far that he stepped on the dead ball line as he grounded it. I mean, that just shows maybe the Bunnies didn't even have their full focus on this game, but it was more than enough for them. And I already talked about how I think the Raiders are worn out by Ricky. I think you could definitely say the same about the Tigers. Madge is an intense character. We know he can coach. We know he's won a comp. He's coached New Zealand to beat Australia in test matches and stuff. But I think he's the kind of guy that would be better off coaching a contender, because he can hold the players to really high standards and he can grill them when they aren't competitive. I don't think Madge works for a rebuild. So there's 9 games to go. And for our season-long multi, we need the Tigers to win over 7.5. They've got 5 wins. So I think we still have our chance, but the Tigers are going to need, 3 more wins to round out the season. At least they showed a little bit of fight to end the game. Let us know what else you guys took away from the round, but that's my recap. I also want to apologize for a bit of inconsistency on Wednesdays. I do strive to get the pod up at 5:45 on YouTube. It's just that because I'm kind of always cutting it fine with my timing, and then if I get any holdups or just if the internet's been a bit slow, I've had it where it's uploading on YouTube and then it tells me it's not going to premiere in time. So the best I can say is, if you are someone who's really keen and loves to tune in live, is just check the Tripod social media pages. I'll do a post really close to 5:45 to let you know if it's going to be late. I'll also put it on the the YouTube channel feed as well. So I'll try and give people a head up. And if you check the YouTube feed and you search Tripod Betting, it'll usually say when the video is planned to premiere. So I'll try and help you guys out. But regardless, the pod always premieres on YouTube. So that's the best place to catch it if you want to be among the first people who are watching it live. that's the place to do it. And then as soon as I've got it uploaded, then I chuck it on Facebook as well. Only other thing to mention probably is that Euros tip that I gave out. This is a European soccer tip now for the big tournament that's going on at the moment. We tipped Italy or Holland to win. Well, we have got Italy into the semi-finals. They're like $3.20 to win it at this point, and that bet was paying $6.50. So you've got kind of double the odds if you jumped on that one. So hopefully Italy can go well this week with the semi-finals, probably midweek, and then I think a week from now will be the final. Hopefully we can get a horse in that race. But thanks everyone for tuning in, and I'll catch you on Wednesday with the round 17 preview. Lego.